Hi again. My name is Marina. I'm the founder of GBTH, a resident-based art incubator in Second Life, established at the end of 2017. Welcome to the fourth and final video of our Virtual Exhibition 101 series. If you just arrived here, this series is focused on sharing with the community guidelines and methodologies that we use at GBTH, gathered over 6 years of experimentation and learning. The idea behind this video series is to cover in one place the key aspects of Second Life's technicalities in an accessible and uncomplicated way, in the hope it will empower the community to embark on the artistic endeavors. Virtual Exhibition 101 was made possible thanks to the generous sponsors of this series: Bad Unicorn, Conch Island, Contraption, Deep Static, Fancy Decor, High Five, and Soy. You can find more about them in the video description. In the previous videos, I've covered how to frame your artwork, how to set up your land, how to pick a building for your gallery, and the thought process behind placing the artworks in it. Now we'll dive into finishing the setup and also going through the final and very important steps prior to the exhibition opening. Without any further ado, let's get to it. I can't reinforce enough the importance of exhibition texts, and before you feel discouraged, let me tell you that all this sausage feeling is a complete pass. In a very resumed way, the texts help contextualize the body of work on display you're about to see. For this specific case, we have a text about this exhibition, GBTH Selected Works, a text about the GBTH Mutual Aid Program in which this video series is part of, and exhibition credits. I'll replace the temporary texts with the final ones. I highly suggest the image being white text without background. It blends better with the wall it will be in, and the white alpha allows for a lot of freedom with tinting. For better comprehension, I'll add a simple thin frame separating each body of text. In this exhibition, we'll be adding placards with information from the exhibition the works have been taken from: title, name of the artist, year the exhibition opened, and a QR code that leads to the respective exhibition page on GBTH's website, which contains all the texts, links, and whatnot about each one of these exhibits. Here, they're already assembled, since we went over this on the first video. I renamed each accordingly and added a simple load URL script inside each placard that will open a pop-up window upon clicking, as an alternative to the use of the QR code for those who would rather not. To make life easier, I'll separate them by area and then just place them on the floor near the corresponding artworks. You can see that there's something there, but it isn't visually distracting. On the second floor, I'll place them immediately outside the overlays, side by side. In the isolated room, the placards will be placed on the wall since there are multiple sculptures from each artist that are not being displayed side by side. With the GBTH Way to Breaker figurines, the placard would be on the floor prior to the entrance of the deck due to space limitations. To wrap up the signs and text bits, let's add some wayfinding signs to this building. For the floor IDs, it makes sense placing near the stairs on each floor for who is about to take the stairs or for who is arriving on said floor. So I'll place one near the door frame and another on this row right in front of the exit, then copy upwards for all 3 floors, replacing the texture for the corresponding one. Since it's been decided here that the isolated room will be called as such, the sign with its name will be placed outside the bottom entrance. We also have a separate image for the title, which I'll place near the texts. In this case now, I'll also copy and scale up to place on the outside of the gallery. Moving up next, exhibition furniture. The idea is to keep it non-disruptive with the work you're displaying. You don't want them in a visual competition once everything within this positive space directly influences the viewer's perception of the work. One might argue that benches are quite dismissible in a virtual exhibit, but that's not totally the case. Here, we can use them for 2 main reasons: mobility, in which visitors can opt to come around and sit, and to reinforce the idea that the visitor is welcome to stay as long as they want. The ones I picked for this exhibit are Soy's Lobby Leather Bench for the interior and Fancy Decor's Baker Bench for the exterior. Before I make copies and place them around, I'll choose the white texture on Soy's and delete the texture script inside of it to help reduce the lag in the venue. With the white base, I will actually select the face of the seat and tint it warm gray to match the floor. Fancy Decors is a single color bench, and its black lines actually match the trims in the building. One last step will be actually checking their heights and resizing, being mindful of the overall oversized aspect of Second Life's proportions, which I covered in the first video. The average height of a seat in the physical world goes from 40 to 50 centimeters. I'll make a prim, which is 50 centimeters by default, and scale both down until the height is met. This is optional, but I just like how it helps feeling more realistic. Starting again on the first floor, which has all this open space, I'll place the benches 3 meters away from the walls. You want to make sure they won't get in the view, but also not too distant that you have trouble seeing the works. On the second floor, I'll have a different approach. The benches will be placed closer to the back wall, so it's still possible to walk this path. I like the windows here, but I feel like they end up distracting a bit. To solve that, I'll use Soy's vertical blind curtain, also in white, with a softer tint this time, to gently cover the windows. Like this, we don't need to mess with the integrity of the building, nor completely block the view. Both the isolated room and the third floor don't really welcome benches because of their layouts. So for this case, I'll use Fancy Decor's Baker bench on the entrance outside and also copy it to the wall in front. I'll add another copy of the Baker bench to the outside entrance of the third floor, as well as in this small room with the floor sign. It looks good and helps the room not feel too empty, so I'll copy and place it in the same location on the second and first floors. Now let's work on the lighting of this exhibition. I actually debated holding the release of this video series because of PBR, physically based rendering, the new light engine that is being implemented in Second Life. I've been actually experimenting a lot with PBR in World, and although I won't cover it on this series yet, because it's still being worked on, this walkthrough will remain relevant. First thing I'll do is change locally the sky to midnight, which makes it easier to see how the light will behave. Second, I'll open Firestorm's photo tools that you can also find available on your viewer's toolbar. Go to the Aids tab and check the two first boxes. Show bounding boxes for all lights in scene and show light radius for selected lights. You can see that the building already has light in it, but because of how light behaves in Second Life, I'll disable them all so we can start from scratch. It will make sense in a bit. Once we turned off the lights that come with the building, you can see that the bounding light boxes are only on the figurines and these will be left as is. We'll first work on the ambient lights of the exhibition. Making a prim, I'll rename it Light because it prevents being mistaken by a random object and deleted in an attempt to clean up the space. On the Object tab, I'll set the shape to Sphere and then check the Phantom box. On the Features tab, I'll check the Light option and the default settings will pop. It is super bright, and if I zoom out, you can see how far the light reaches once you have the Show Light Radius for selected lights checked. I'll lower the radius to 3.0 for now, and place the light ring suspended between the floor and ceiling. On the Texture tab, I'll set transparency to 50%, just so it's easier to locate the lights before we link them all and make them fully transparent. From there, I'll tint the light by clicking the white box on the Features tab. I'll pick the orange color and set luminance to 90. The intensity I'll reduce to 0.8 and fall off I'll set to 1.5. Now we have a nice, soft warm base to work with. You can see that the light radius is still going through the floor and ceiling, which is how the simple light works. It doesn't cast shadows, so nothing holds it back from shining bright, which can look quite unrealistic. To fix that, I'll reduce the radius until it's barely touching the ceiling and floor, 1.9 in this case. Now I can finally copy this light all over the first floor, since the ceiling height doesn't change. The key is spacing them in a way that the radius limit kind of goes in the center of the light next to it, so we avoid these gaps between them. Yes, it can get quite heavy on land impact. You can always compromise and place less on more strategic places if the land capacity of your venue is limited. This is just an extra layer that helps with a more realistic look. On the second floor, since the ceiling is higher, I'll increase the radius to 2.0 and do the same process for all 3 rooms. For the isolated room, we can go to town and increase the radius following the same thought process as before. Now I got 4.3. This will result in less light sources. Just be mindful to keep the light within the limits of the walls. On the third and last floor, we will adjust the radius once again because it's a different height, and then light up the entrance room with the very same thought process. In the deck, I'll actually lower the radius to 2.0 and, still mindful of the floor, wall, and spacement, create 2 lines of lights so the front of the figurines will be lit. Once all the lights have been set, you can go back to Photo Tools, uncheck the Show Light Radius for selected lights, and link all the spring lights together. Sometimes they'll be too far apart to be linked, so I tend to do it by area. After you're done, you can set transparency to 100%, or, which I prefer, select the transparent texture on the building menu. Since the EEP of the parcel is in daylight, I won't be lighting up the exterior of this building. Now we can do the spotlights using projectors. The process is quite similar as before. Make a prim, change its name to spot or whatever you feel like. The object shape this time, I'll select cylinder. Make it phantom, go to the Features tab, check the light box. I'll pick the orange again for the tint, but this time set luminance to 95 so it's a bit cooler. Then click on this little box near the tint, and that's where you pick an image that will turn your prim light into a projector. You can click blank, but you see it's a square. I have this very simple spotlight texture that is nothing more than a white circle on a black square, which works as a mask, rendering the image with a nice spotlight effect. For the remaining settings, intensity to 0.8, radius to 3.0 for a start, fall off to 1.0. With projectors, we actually get to use these other columns of settings here. The FOV, field of view, will change on a case-by-case scenario, and since the texture I use is already blurred, I won't mess with focus. I rarely use ambience because it makes the light super strong and kind of flats out whatever is in front of it. It's important to notice that projectors will only render as such with advanced lighting model on. Without it, it's nothing but another prim light. Keep in mind that with PBR, disabling the advanced lighting model will no longer be an option. The placement of the projectors will be on the ceiling, loosely 2 meters away from the wall it will light up, and at a 45-degree angle to start. Notice how placing the projector on the ceiling, opposed to the middle point we use from the ambient light, makes it seem that there is a big light leakage on the top floor, but if you zoom up, you can't really see it. That's normal and due to the nature of the projector. It will only render light through the object's bottom face. We still need to be mindful of the walls though, because you can only cast shadow of 2 projectors at once. In the case of 3 or more, it will cast the shadows of the projector closer to the camera, therefore leakage may occur to the projected wall if you're not careful. I'm placing the projectors and adjusting the FOV and angle as I go. On the second floor, I will only add projectors to Misha's distance images. I'll refrain from adding projectors on Amanda's New Year's Eve stills because they're already in light boxes. In the isolated room's walls, there is actually a baked spotlight situation going on. Ideally, this wouldn't happen, but since it's here, we can align the projectors to the baked texture to the best of our abilities and move on about our day. For Bebel's Bloom 2, I'll place a projector centered on the top of it, which adds this really nice shadow on the floor. I'll refrain from placing more because of the shadow limit situation. With that also in mind, I'll actually change the projector's image to a blank square with the prim on a cube to light up Rachel and Vincent's smaller sculpture displayed on these tables. I'll review the radius, field of view, and focus in order to get the best result. After all that is done, I'll once again link all the projectors and turn them transparent. In the physical world, there are a few ways to keep track of how many visitors an exhibition receives, and it's an important data for its documentation. Here in Second Life, I personally like to use the Great Gritter by Low Industries, which you can find on Marketplace for 1 linden, and the settings can be adjusted to your needs. For the guest book, I use a soy simple table and the clear box with papers with a simple script inside that allows the visitors to write their thoughts about the show. Whenever an exhibition is closed here at GBTH, I gather the final number of visitors and out the guest book entries in a note card, sharing a copy with the artist as well. While we're on scripts, I will remove the ones inside the building's doors because it helps preventing lag and doors being closed by visitors, which may lead to confusion to others. Now let's move to documentation pictures. Listen, this is something I can't stress enough how important it is. In simple words, as a gallery, having an image database, even if private, of all the works you've presented is crucial. As an artist, it helps you put together a nice portfolio, and in general can help you as extra promotional material for the exhibition as well. The viewer settings I recommend for documentation pictures are shadows, ambient occlusion, depth of field, local lights, and the EEP assigned to the parcel or exhibition. The image size for documentation I use here at GBTH is 1500 by 844 pixels, which can be set on the snapshot window. There is no need to make these super high res, especially when we're talking about a large volume of images. For the angle, you want to keep it on a sort of eye level. Think of these images as a visual walkthrough. You can use the shortcuts Ctrl+0 to zoom in, Ctrl+8 to zoom out, and Ctrl+9 to reset back to your original settings. Whenever I'm taking these pictures, I like to start from the front of the building and follow through with the camera, mimicking the intended flow of the visitor and keeping the files in order. It just makes life easier for the long run. Don't be shy of taking a couple of variations of the same area or angle. It takes an extra second and it's easier to delete than coming back and retaking the shot. Make sure to cover all the works and also wider shots of the rooms. Lastly, I highly suggest submitting the exhibition or venue in the destination guide. If you're the gallery owner, it should be done by you. If you're an artist doing an indie exhibit in your own parcel, then you should be the one submitting. To submit a destination to the Second Life Destination Guide, residents can use the web form at the link I added on the description or email the information requested in that form to editor@lindenlab.com. Any resident who has a destination, region, parcel, etc. that is open to the public can submit it to be featured, so it doesn't apply only for art galleries and exhibitions. Linden Lab's editorial team has the final decision on who gets featured and in which categories. There are some strict guidelines on images and text for the submission, and those are imposed by Linden Lab itself. The description of the destination needs to be in complete sentences and under 400 characters. Third-person voice needs to be used, so residents need to avoid the use of first-person language, such as I, we, our, us, and my. Also, they ask to refrain from using adult language, overly hyped or promotion-heavy language, or advertising job vacancies. Keep in mind that the material submit might be altered by Linden Lab for length or clarity. The image needs to be of the location in Word without any photoshopped text on top, and they'll be displayed on a 5:3 aspect ratio. Don't forget to also inform through email about any sort of changes to your venue. And finally, that's a wrap. See you around.